We have seen how the EQS testing pawn can be used in the editor, but what about when the game is already running? For this task, we will once again use the Gameplay Debugger, but this time we will activate the EQS category. Once we have activated the category, we will use what we have already learned about the EQS query system to interpret the debug information provided as we observe the AI. Let's jump right into the game and get started looking at the Gameplay Debugger. Press play from the toolbar or press Alt-P on the keyboard to begin a play and editor session. Position the character somewhere here behind the stair mesh to remain hidden from the AI. This will allow us to focus on the Find Food EQS query first. Let's begin by enabling the Gameplay Debugger. Face the camera towards the AI and press whichever key you have bound to enable the Gameplay Debugger. As we now want to focus on the EQS category, disable both the AI and behavior tree categories by pressing 1 and 2 on the number pad. Press 3 on the number pad to enable the EQS category. Now, so we can actually see what's going on, press Tab to enable the spectator view. Fly the camera towards where the food sources and the AI are. On screen now, we can see a similar setup to what we saw with the EQS testing pawn. We can see that each of the food source items has a score and a marked winner. Something else we can do from this perspective is press the divide key on the number pad and see a detailed table view of every item that was evaluated and scored. Here we can see all 3 food source items and which one got the highest score. We can also see that test 0 was responsible for giving them these scores. At the bottom of the table, in case we'd forgotten, we have a key for the tests. And test 0 is our distance to query a test, which we set to prefer lesser distances. Let's press divide on the number pad again to disable the table view. Now let's take a closer look at our more complex query. Press Tab to disable the spectator camera and move our player character towards the AI until it perceives them. Now we've become visible to the AI, we can see that it's avoiding us, but we can't necessarily see the query that is being run. We may need to press multiply on the number pad to cycle through the separate queries. Once we do that, we will see the same grid we just saw with the EQS testing pawn, but now it's updating live. Once again, we can switch to the spectator cam to get a better view. Press Tab and float above our player character. Note that an additional option we have here is we can select various points in the grid by positioning the camera over them. These are indicated by the red arrow. If we hover over an item that has been made invalid, we can hover over it with the camera and see why. In this case, we can see the selected item, number 54, is invalid because it failed test 0. As indicated by the following yellow text, this was our trace to the EQSC_player was the context we created to represent the player's position. Note that as before, we can press divide to look at a more detailed table which will show us how each point on the grid has been scored. This concludes our quick look at the EQS category of the Gameplay Debugger, so we can hit stop in the toolbar to stop the currently running session. In this video, we saw how the EQS category of the Gameplay Debugger helps us to see how and when the AI is using the EQS system in real time. We use the debugger to observe our queries in action and confirm they are working as intended.